Good evening, and I'll call this meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Grand Marais Public Library to order at 5:01 p.m. on October 28th. This is a Thursday, 2021. And we have everybody here, so that's great. Welcome, everyone. Good evening. And I don't think we have any visitors, so no introductions needed. And that would bring us on to the consent agenda, which includes our whole agenda, the previous minutes, and the bills. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Can we add something into the new business?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. And I also need to do that too. But yes, please.
The article talked about the possible Arrowhead library strike.
Oh,
Whoa.
I haven't heard it.
It was in the paper last week or the week before that.
That was last week.
That Arrowhead's, the
ALS?
ALS is workers are possibly going on strike.
Okay, yeah, we'll put that under new
So-
business. And also thank you, because that reminds me, I needed to add new business, and that's regarding to the director's review, which is kind of a policy committee, personnel committee joint discussion there. ALS strike, director review. So, after those amendments to our agenda, is there anyone who would like to make a motion to approve?
I would move to add those things in and take that consent agenda.
Thank you. We have a
Second.
motion and a second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Otherwise, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Then we move on to the library director's report. And I'll hand it over to Amanda.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, reminder that the training with Office of Intellectual Freedom is here on Wednesday, November 3rd from 11:30 till 2. I did send an email out to Deborah to confirm that she's still coming. I know they're having some staffing issues too, but I haven't heard back, and I'm assuming she'll be there. The Library Friends of Cook County, I'd love to touch base on them. Their grant cycle just began for the 2022 awards for the libraries that they serve. So they're looking to offer the library up to $1,000 for a literacy-related need, and we'll be working on that grant. But I also had a chance to check in with Jan, the president of the Friends, and she was telling me about the success of their last book sale that I think was in September. They did about $600 to $700. It was a really great benefit. And they also are interested in purchasing for the library this thing called the pickup truck opera that could be like a finale for our summer reading program next year. So it's a pickup truck and a trailer and a whole troupe of opera performers who drive to wherever the site is, and they set up and they perform live. It would be especially geared towards children. So we're super excited about their offer to look into that some more, and I hope that we'll have that for next year. We've been partnering with Early Childhood Family Education, ECFE, who's doing a great job of trying to revitalize their program. And it was a story stroll that we had up at the community center with about 10 families coming to get connected to the services and that we can provide, and also to take advantage, of course, of getting together and the treats. We're gonna do this event again on the library lawn with ECFE on November 6th. So it's coming up really quick, and we're excited about it. Some staff education and meetings. The Minnesota Libraries Association, their annual conference was virtual again this year, and Kristen and I were able to attend that. We discussed things like kind of how libraries were responding to the pandemic, and land acknowledgements and labor acknowledgements were a couple of the topic of a couple of sessions. we talked about visual merchandising and also library work as a vocation. So it was pretty exciting. And then I also did a training with my clerk, Kathy Kundle, and we were learning about interlibrary loan information with the Arrowhead Library System. So it was really great to bring her into that conversation. So those are all of our happy things, right? Our uppy up things. Something I did want to talk about today was that, especially in the last month, the loss of our fourth clerk has really started to slow down my progress on things that I'd like to be working on. For example, getting back to the policy things that we were working on. But I'm super excited. We finally found someone. Phil Oswald would like to join our team and has joined our team. And I don't know if he came through City Council last night.
Yep.
Did
Yep,
you
so it was
approve my
approved.
new clerk?
We
Thank
certainly
you.
did.
We need him. So I feel like what we're doing in the library right now is, one, we're coming off of our visitor season. We're all feeling a new weight of the pandemic just on a personal level. Like, I think that's starting to catch up to us a little bit. At the same time, our opportunities are ramping up. So, like I've been talking to you about being able to connect with ECFE and Sawtooth Mountain Clinic for their Community Hub grant, and Kristen and I have started talking about adult programs, for example, an adult winter reading program that we'd really like to launch and get going. But it's also the training of a new employee is going to be heavier than even normal, because I'm training a supervisor to train an employee. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that right now it's really hard for me to prioritize and also to estimate when I can get certain things done. And it's not because I'm neglecting my work. It's because it's growing and shifting. And it's been really exciting for me to work with Kristen and to kind of step out of the assistant director's role, but that process is still happening. I don't think I need anything special from you, just to know that that's kind of happening, that we're getting this extra person back in. Some of our staff, our library clerks, were so generous with their time while we were down another person, and they were really looking to pull back their hours again and to have their regular schedules. So it times really well with Phil, but we're also going to have that training period where it still takes a lot of effort and energy.
Mm-hmm.
That's my report.
All right. Thank you. And yeah, I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
And I have not heard any complaints, nor have I witnessed any delays or whatever. So I certainly appreciate all that staff have done, shorthanded, and I think just, yeah, it's been exemplary service in general. So and if you do need more support, please, I mean, certainly feel free to call at any point to talk through things, or any of the board members as well, I'm sure would be happy to lend an ear. But I think you've got a pretty good handle on things, and I don't know if the rest of the board have different expectations as far as the transition is concerned to the timing, but I do not. So
Okay.
No.
I'll just maintain a relaxed approach then. Okay.
yeah, we value your work and your efforts and all of the staffs and the library.
And
as
we
a
don't
whole,
need you to
so.
burn out too.
Right,
Thanks.
right,
Yeah,
right.
thank you.
Exactly. Does anyone have any questions for Amanda's report? Because I do, otherwise, just a couple. I liked hearing about the land acknowledgement statement, but I'm not familiar with labor acknowledgement.
I am not familiar with labor acknowledgement either. There are some libraries from areas that very heavily used slave labor.
Oh,
And so a labor acknowledgement is acknowledging the history of the place, and that there are that the city's success is based on the back of other people's labor and not by their choice. I'm
Sure.
not saying that very well, but yeah, it was the first time I'd ever heard of that.
I guess I have heard of the concept, just not in those terms, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, that's very, very interesting, and, yeah, I think it probably would be worth a discussion, at a later date, just about, the library, adopting a land acknowledgement statement, and I believe the city has already in the past. The county has been involved in discussions trying to massage the language, and has been working with both the school board reps and the hospital board reps in developing that. So I'd be happy to share that with the library board of trustees when the county is
Did they finalize that? The language in that?
the county has not adopted it.
Okay.
And so I'd be happy to share that when the county has done that, or even if the county does not vote on that, I'd be happy to share it when it's ready for that.
Right.
But yes, the work group has come up with
And
the
that's through
suggested
the joint
language.
powers.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So with that, like, just to share what we were talking about in the conference, we were really called to understand that land acknowledgements are well-meaning and well-intentioned, but they should also include action items. For example, if you're purchasing books, you would purchase from an indigenous bookseller,
Huh?
and find ways that some states, Minnesota, I don't think is one of these states, but some states actually allow you to allocate your taxes to a tribe and to just to like actually put money and investment back into the original landowners.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's one of the things we're struggling with at that joint powers group is just, okay, yes, these are nice words, but what comes after that? And so some of the things we focused on is education, just learning more about the value of land acknowledgement or any of the issues associated with. Then also policies. So what kind of policies can we put in place to make sure that we're looking at things through an equity lens? And then what was the last one? There was a third one, but it slips my mind right now. Maybe just further action. I don't know. Okay, great. Well, that was the only other question I had, I guess. Okay. Well, thank you, Amanda. Oh, I was also just going to let everyone know that I plan on attending the training on Wednesday, November 3rd. I do have a meeting. It's just a virtual meeting. That'll be before, that starts at 9. So there's a possibility that I'd be late. Just a heads up. But I do plan on being there. I don't know if anyone else will be available, but I think it'd be very valuable.
Where's that to be held again?
That's here, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome.
Okay, well, is it okay if we move on to our committee reports, of which there are none? And then the communications included in our packet. Nothing under unfinished business, and then new business. We have the ALS strike. We can start there. Yes. And
Synopsis, I have no idea how that relationship was there, and when I read that, I'm like, oh, maybe that'll be. But yeah, apparently their group or the board based their pay raises with one group, and the employees are saying, but you're not comparing apples to apples, and so you are not shorting us, and so there's been some negotiation. It sounds like the labor is supposed to be in the next couple of days voting on whether to accept that, or if they don't, there's a possible strike, and so that means that system will be shutting down. And I'm like, well, that's going to be important for this, for our library, if we can't do interlibrary loans or exchanges or any of that stuff. So I didn't know if we are up to speed or if we're planning had any contingency plans, or if we knew, or, yeah, it was in last week's newspaper, so that, maybe we should talk about it.
Yeah, appreciate you bringing that up. Are you privy, Amanda, to any of the
I wasn't.
ins and outs? Oh, okay.
Mm-mm, I
So how
wasn't.
are you at all? How might that impact us? Conjecture,
Yeah. If,
or maybe you don't want to even.
if there are no employees at Arrowhead Library System and our
Mhm.
circulation system goes down, there's no support and no correcting the problem. No circulation software whatsoever, no being able to access patron records at all. Interlibrary loans would definitely be impacted, especially if we were getting materials outside of the Arrowhead region. I'm not entirely sure what happens if we're still circulating between libraries, but not through Arrowhead. I think that the warehouse for exchanging our books is actually separate from Arrowhead. So the Alliance Courier could potentially run, but the statewide service or this beyond the state service would not come through because it all is managed by Arrowhead Library System. Arrowhead Library System maintains a bunch of kits that libraries can borrow. For example, the Story Stroll that we're doing on November 6th is a kit that we borrow from Arrowhead Library System that wouldn't be able to come to us if they were closed. Arrowhead Library System has been helping our libraries coordinate during the pandemic by holding regular COVID check-ins. And it's also our time for directors to connect with each other and kind of figure out what each of us is perceiving as an appropriate library service level. Trying to think of some other things. Do you have any other? Those are big. Those are the big ones. And that would be for an immediate closure, like the long-term
Yeah.
impact. We'd probably figure out all the other glorious things they do for us.
Well, doom, in short.
Yeah.
Well, that's alarming. What I heard you say was that we can't even check out books
If Horizon
Right.
fails,
Oh.
if it
Okay.
goes down.
Sure.
Hmm.
Which, how often does that happen?
It does happen from
It
time
does?
to time.
Eh, okay.
Yeah, maybe every 3 weeks there'll be some kind of a glitch or a something that we make a phone call about.
Need a reboot or something.
Mhm.
Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, and I guess Helen is on the ALS board, so we can
Mhm.
contact her about this for more follow-up. But I don't know if there's more advocacy we can do.
Yeah.
That's maybe the best route is just to go through Helen. But if we as a board of trustees would like to have a letter saying we really value this service, please work it out. I don't know. That's all that helpful. You're getting into labor
Get it together,
negotiations
guys.
and yeah, that's plenty complicated as it is.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll just stay tuned unless, is there more you wanted to talk about?
No,
there?
I-
Gives us
Yeah, no.
okay. Yeah, just worth bringing up for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts from anyone else? No. Okay. Well, the other new business was the director review, and we have our policy in our Google Share Drive
Mhm.
under Trustee Handbook, D Policies and Documents, G Library Director Review Policy.
And this is projected up top too, so we can all look at it together.
Nice, thank you.
There's two documents.
And well, what do I want to say about this? I guess so. It's just our job to the last go around. I was not involved with the review, and there was some confusion with the personnel committee about which document was going to be used. Sounds like that was worked through after some time. It's an interesting situation because we Board of Trustees don't really supervise the director, Amanda. She is a city employee, and the city has their own review and policies. But it is our duty to still go through this review. And there's some confusion in some of the items that Amanda pointed out that it would be very difficult for any trustee to have much perspective on some of the director's duties. And so that's kind of where the policy group, a committee gets involved, is that if we want to change any of this policy, that would be the policy's role, but it's the personnel committee who does the review, so they should also be involved in that policy amendment, I'd say. And that's, I think, kind of the crux of it. And I don't know if we want to go through this whole thing right now, since we have A, meeting called, B, the policy committee here, and C, also the personnel committee here. Just seems like a really convenient way to do this.
And maybe just, without going piece by piece yet, if Kristen, you could touch on the other tab at the top. Okay, this document that has blue and that's in a portrait orientation. I was going to say a portrait landscape. That wasn't correct. This is what the city uses to review its personnel. And it's just, this is the document that was a little confusing to last year's committee, that they didn't know whether they were supposed to use this or, and if you click back on the other tab, or this. And I mean, I think that this is what was intended for use, and the other was intended for reference.
Yeah. And so, you know, I don't expect that, and sorry, I see that nobody else has computers, so I was talking about where it is in the shared drive. It's not helpful at all, but it would be really helpful for us to go through this.
I do have paper copies.
There we go.
If you want them.
That'd
Yes.
be good.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Thank you. Much easier to see.
Oh, you shouldn't have. Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
And, you know, I can just go through, or we can just go through, read it to ourselves page by page, and unless there's items that jump out to anybody about if it's appropriate or if it's difficult or that sort of thing, we can kind of talk through those, if that's okay.
So which one got used last year?
I believe it started with the G1, but then there was confusion there, and then
The
moved-
one that you have in your hand and that we're looking at on the screen is what was ultimately used for my
Okay.
review.
So for example, on page 3, supervision and development of library staff, I don't know how much we as Board of Trustees members would know how, to what extent Amanda is training staff. Like, my impression is that you're doing a great job, but I really don't have a tangible, practical knowledge of that.
Right, I would agree with that. I was flagging that as well.
Yeah, so kind of that whole that whole page, but I guess we can still, leave that there. It's just I don't know how effective it is with our review.
These are all things you would hope would be happening, and it sounds like in your reports this is what happens,
Yeah.
but we don't have any way to really know. It's,
I mean, we could craft something that would allow us to know this, but this feels more like what Mike would be doing.
Right.
So I
Right.
feel like that's more his world.
as presented to us, most of these things look like things that really happen.
On page 4, the circulation and technology. First line says, library director determines appropriate procedures for, and next week we're talking with, what's her name?
Deborah Caldwell
And she's going to be
Stone.
talking to us about this a little bit. And we do have policy in this, so my question on that would be, this is library director determines appropriate, or would the language better be served here? Library director follows policy that has been created. Because in this way, it says that she's the one who determines how we bring in new books, how we bring in new materials. And from my understanding is, we have policies that she and the rest of the staff have to follow.
That's a good point. You have
But wouldn't she have crafted those to begin with, or whoever was in charge, wouldn't they have crafted them?
Well, it's the Board of Trustees' job to, work with the director to craft policies, I guess,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's not solely, I think what Enno's point is that it's not solely on the director to determine the appropriate procedures for acquisition as, well, I guess maybe procedures, but maybe not
Procedures are
criteria.
procedures.
Yeah,
Oh, procedures, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, there you go. Yeah, it's not policy, it's procedures, yeah, you're right.
I was with you the whole way.
Yeah. I sucked you in.
I guess if I'm offering my insight, based on the feedback that I had from the last crew, this question did come up as difficult for them to process, to answer. How would a trustee know what's appropriate for acquisition, sorting, and expansion? But what I really appreciate about what Enno was saying is that the library board is responsible for the policies of the library, even though the director underwrites them. Your expectation of the director is that those policies are upheld, and it might be an easier way to answer the question. Maybe? Because you'd have a criteria.
How well did this review process work for you, receiving feedback?
How well did it work for me?
'Cause the whole point of the review is to give you constructive feedback about your
Yeah.
job. So if this
Yeah.
format isn't useful for that, then it's not a useful format.
Yeah.
Well, and it might be interesting to see what the board did last time with this document. To see how, at least from our perspective, like how well did it work for us too.
Yeah, did you feel like you everything's weird, of course, but did,
right.
did you feel like you understood things better or differently, or gained or grew at all through the review process, or maybe it was just so jumbled and there was enough confusion that it was just onerous?
The end result that I received was highly positive and favorable. The individuals who worked on my review were very careful to use observations to qualify their statements.
Okay.
But sometimes they are just the impression of the, but sometimes they are
Right.
just the impression of the board.
Yep.
It almost seemed to me like it would be beneficial to have a dialogue, a more of a dialogue with board members to, like, these to me feel like questions, like, is the director able to speak to these issues in a way that makes us feel confident that the work is being done properly? Or if the questions were a little bit more geared toward, okay, from the Minnesota Library Association's trustee handbook that everybody should have a copy of, the employee appraisal section starts on page 55. They try to encourage focusing on, is the library director helping us process our meetings well? Is the library director actually upholding the goals that we've set forth with our strategic plan? Is the library director spending money in a way that supports the strategic plan? And that felt really healthy and helpful to me to think about it in those terms, because it's all totally observable and understandable, I think, from the trustee perspective. But I also am trying to, it directly relates to the community's experience of what the library is. Do you understand? I'm wondering if I'm being clear. I feel like when I'm reviewed by Mike, or when I was in the past reviewed by Steve, it made a lot of sense to get pretty technical about some of the language as to whether I was appropriately acquiring materials and, the technical piece. But what's missing is how well are we fulfilling the mission? How effective does the community find the library to be? So I feel like and trustees are the representatives of that community. So it's like that, if I could have that piece, it'd be very helpful.
Yeah, I want to read that now. So it's page 55?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, referencing the strategic plan especially, I think would be helpful because that's something you presented to us on. It's something we've discussed. It's something we've all agreed on together as a set of goals.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a more effective way to give feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was anybody here on the personnel committee that did it last year that would speak to? No, all that new, huh?
The personnel committee last year was comprised of Chris McPherson, Helen Youth, and Jay Aerosmith DeCoo, if I think I did the last name correctly.
Yeah.
Just a couple of, the couple of pieces of feedback that they gave me was that the staff performance, like how I'm interacting with staff and gathering staff feedback, was a challenging part. Like, there really was no way that they never actually formulated a tool to gather any of the staff feedback. And that has to be navigated very carefully and coordinated with the city, because the staff, as Michael Gary was trying to say, we have a union contract and a path of communication within the city. So creating a tool to get that piece of feedback. Could you click on the very first page? See how up here under participants, it says that feedback for the review will be collected or obtained from the library board and the employees of the library, but then the responsibility piece says that the information must be gathered by the experiences of the board, the personnel committee and the board. that's this confusing piece. And that's why I think if we're looking more at policy development, budget management, or strategic goals and mission, that it might actually be a better fit for everybody. The other piece was figuring out, like, an actual planning piece. How does Personnel Committee plan to gather feedback from all of the other board members in order to have an aggregate and not to only have feedback from the Personnel Committee? And it was just challenging to orchestrate that, plus it was the pandemic. So those pieces were missing when the review was actually delivered.
Yeah, my knee jerk is actually get rid of the employees part, just because of the city organization, and what our role is as a board is not about management. It's more about the big picture, the vision, the strategic plan, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. I care what the employees think, it's just recognizing the different avenues or roles. Does that seem, how does
Yeah.
that seem? I saw nodding, but,
Yeah.
We shouldn't be duplicating
No.
what the city, if the
Exactly.
city is doing those type of things of job performance and stuff, and hitting markers and those kind of things, then it's redundant at best for us to try to do the same thing. I agree that, focusing more on the policy goals and
Yeah.
the broader picture is much more in our purview of not how many hours she's putting on this and
how punctual.
punctual.
So that will require change to our policy. That's really exciting. If we want to do that, and that will require the policy committee to meet, and we're all here, of course. And frankly, I don't know the legal requirements for changing policy with the library board of trustees. If there's, like with the city or with the county, there's multiple readings and hearings. I don't think that's probably the same. I do recall voting on adopting policies in the past, and it was just pretty straightforward. So
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a process or how much time we want to spend either now or outside of the meeting going through this and making changes. I'm fishing for what other members are thinking there.
I'm just seeing what else you could put up. Just waiting.
What else you got?
What else you got? You gotta have more than that. I'm inclined to really just scrap this and start again and really focus in, and maybe, obviously not try and recreate the wheel. I'm sure somebody out there in another library is doing
Yeah.
something closer to what we want to do, and finding that, I think, would be what I would like. You know,
In our bylaws, number one, duties of the trustees, board of trustees, number one, determine the policy of the library and develop the highest possible degree of operating efficiency. So it's on us to change policy or
Yeah.
craft policy, so.
yeah, and I just wasn't sure, like you, to what degree do we have to let others outside of here know what we're doing, like that I'm not sure about. Obviously, at the city what that's like, the read, and there you go. It gives the public an opportunity to pitch in, but I don't think this is more, I don't know, this is more like internal workings, I feel. So I would think we could just vote.
Craft and vote?
Craft and vote.
Yeah. That's my understanding too.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, it's,
Who would tell us we can't do it that way?
The attorney.
Lawyers.
Lawyers, county attorney, I guess, city attorney, I don't know.
Yeah, we can ask.
Yeah.
Probably Mike Roth would have good perspective on that, maybe not. I could also ask past board members, see if
if they just did it.
there's more perspective there, just as far as procedure is concerned, but I think we pretty much just craft and vote and.
See what happens.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's okay.
From reading past minutes, it seems like the policy committee has just brought modified policies to the board to be approved.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall anything as, usually it's minor tweaks. And this is a little bit more involved, but I think it's the same procedure.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think you're just what you're
Yeah.
saying.
And I think it makes sense to remove and the employees of the library from the participants, and then maybe to ask the personnel committee to come up with a better document for the evaluation.
And then pass that on to the policy committee?
And
or-
then pass that back to the policy committee.
Yeah.
Or do we need it's probably good to have that review format formalized somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it really poses the question, do we need these separate, right now the board is pretty small. Do we need separate committees to work on these things? Is that the most efficient way to do this? Or what's gonna give us the best result?
What's the speed factor? When do we have to have this done?
Well, we're supposed to have a review done annually. So we're getting close to the end of the year here. My understanding is there is not a fast need on Amanda's part. And ultimately this, it is our responsibility, but it's for largely Amanda's benefit as well as, of course, the health of the system too.
I mean, it is in the policy, we control the policy. Going into the holiday season, so to speak, could we as the board suspend
The policy.
until another one is created and set a deadline for maybe January, February? So it gives us time to work all these issues.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Give
I
some
mean-
time to really craft something that the next board doesn't have to make again.
Yeah. Does anyone have any concerns with that? I would rather get it done sooner than later, just because it feels like a wait, right?
Okay.
But as you say, yes, getting into the holiday season could certainly slow things down. Do you have concerns timing wise, Amanda?
I'm not concerned about timing as much as making sure that everybody can do the work and feel good about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's worth taking time doing that.
Mm-hmm.
As you're discussing maybe how to get this done and whether to pass it to a particular committee or not, I think especially with the recording and televising and posting of all of the meetings, I'm thinking that it might be most efficient if everybody just took the personal assignment of trying to think about what I'm wondering about is just on a technical thing is if everybody outlined or took the criteria that they thought were necessary to evaluate, I could compile it for you and have the compilation. If you could do that in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I could provide you a compilation that you could discuss in the next meeting.
So you mean take this one that we already have, go
Well-
through this, or no?
What, perhaps if you take the area, identify this is my recommendation. I'm not telling you how to do this, but
No,
you've already
you are a
identified.
professional.
You've already identified the core areas, I think, that you would like to change as the criteria for reviewing the director. Strategic goals and executing the strategic goals. Managing the budget to support those goals. Some sort of community aspect of how well does the director engage or serve the needs of the community. I think in one of your bylaws, I'm just going to bring in some ideas here. I think in your bylaws, you actually have a statement about making sure that we're serving the underserved. So you might think about putting that in as a criteria of meeting the needs. Is the director actually serving anyone new in the community? So we have the budget and then maybe the policies somehow. I'm not sure how that will actually work, but maybe it's an area to consider as one of the 4 pillars of the review or what have you. And then from there, you can come back to this document and see if any of the questions actually support what the angle we're trying to go for. You can look at page 55 through 57 of the Minnesota Library Trustees Handbook to see what they were recommending as questions to review the director, and then you can also look at what other libraries do for their review. I think that some library boards may be solely responsible for reviewing the director, and then just remembering that in this library, in this environment, I'm actually reviewed also by the administrator, so it might free, so when you come across questions that perhaps look at things more technically or require you to engage directly with staff, maybe keep that piece in mind. If you all did little bullet points under those headings, I could compile them pretty easily and project them for you to discuss.
Maybe we could talk about it next time and get it over with.
Yeah. And then the G1 there, is that the what the city uses?
Yeah,
And could I get a copy of that so we can?
here you go.
So
It's in the board drive. I have a physical copy of it. You might, as you're looking at revising this policy, consider removing it from policy, because it's not actually a tool that you use. It's kind of like a reference. It's almost distracting. It could be like an appendix or something because I think you can request to see at any time the review form that the city uses or what the you might want the job description.
The job description would be really helpful.
Yeah, job description is a good point. And when I take a step back from all the words of our policy, if you just look at the headings, marketing the library, supervision and development of the library staff, circulation and technology, general performance, financial management, communication, all of the 4 pillars fit somehow into those 6 pillars, whatever, 7 pillars. But it's kind of when you get into those individual bullets where it starts to get more confusing in my mind. And I certainly like the idea of poaching from the success of other libraries too. So I don't know if we'll be able to find a good process in short time on that note too. But were you suggesting kind of going through these bullets already printed and comparing them with the 4 pillars that you had said?
I'm just trying to give ideas for
Yeah.
for how you might not reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
To start, how is this going to actually look or function? Or I'll give you an example from the Minnesota Library Trustee thingamabobby that I keep talking about. One of the questions is, are funds aligned with the strategic plan? Is preparation work completed in a timely manner for the board? Like another pillar you could have is my presentation to you, like how well do I interact with the board? Which might be a really good way to have a sense of how the director generally conducts business. And then David, mostly I'm just trying to facilitate the work. I just thought I had a good idea for organizing it.
You did.
It is, yes. I appreciate that. I know you're not on a committee here.
He wasn't on the board when we did
No, and I thought we had incorporated you into a committee, but maybe not.
No, conversation, I can't remember, with Amanda and others was like, well, wait until we do the next year's and then I'll jump in on,
Okay, yeah,
so.
fair enough. Well, already, just with our brief conversation this evening, I feel like maybe it, I mean,
Yeah.
it would be nice to have ready for the next board meeting, but it does maybe seem like it would be nice to meet as a subcommittee to work through it and have it ready for the next board meeting, so.
And I guess let's contextualize here. We're meeting November 3 for a training session. We're meeting early on November 17 for a board meeting. I'm not sure how that fits into everybody's schedule
That's
for.
We're about 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
Well, rest for the weary. Okay, well, what do we think our next steps are? Gleaning from others, going through this, compiling. Do we want to do it committee work? Do we want to just bring it to work on next time?
I think we can just bring it to work on next time.
Okay,
And maybe we'll finish and maybe we won't.
okay, yeah, there you go,
If we need additional information, yeah.
there we go.
If
And-
you finish any work in advance that you want to share, that would be presentation ready, not perfect, but something we can show to everyone. I can project the work too and maybe have a working document. So if that's helpful, just send whatever
Send an email with the,
with whatever you
Yeah,
have.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
and we can maybe, real time move things around and
Yeah.
edit it, in the meeting on the screen and all that. Would that be
Yep.
appropriate? Well, that sounds fun. And then also, I guess maybe we don't need to assign people to do it, but if we just want to try to find other libraries with good director reviews that they're willing to share, that may be good homework for us.
Yeah.
Maybe just let the rest of the board know if you're reaching out to a library so we don't duplicate efforts.
There you go. Yeah, I was just trying to think, maybe I'll reach out to the Grand Rapids Library. I'm from Grand Rapids, that's why, but otherwise, I was trying to think of another library, like, ooh, actually, I'm gonna reach out, I have a friend, Leave, Molstad
Oh,
is-
yeah.
I'll reach out to Leave and see if is that the Bo V, library? So I take it back, I'm not going to Grand Rapids.
All
Someone
right.
else can do that.
It's possible, Arrowhead Library System tries to coordinate some policy examples so that libraries have them. Someone could check their website to see if anything on there does address employee appraisal or director appraisal. And then nobody else can do those libraries.
Wait, what? Okay.
You would look, David, for a policies page of some kind.
So we send this to the email that you sent out the notification from, and that would be the best way to contact, send information.
Sorry, can you run that by me again?
We would send it to the email that you sent out this information, or the meeting notice on. That'd be the best way for us to compile this stuff, is to send it to that email.
Your email address.
To
Email.
my, yes, send anything that So, anything that you make, send it to me and I can compile for everyone. Yeah.
That does bring up a good point that maybe we should talk about is just open meeting law. We actually cannot, as individual board members, share policies to the whole board. We have to direct everything through the director.
Because you'd create a quorum.
Yep.
Ah.
And since we're on open meeting law.
Oh, yeah.
I'm new, I'm learning, we're learning together, and we're also now televising all of our meetings. And I just think it's a great opportunity right now to review open meeting law and closed meetings. Because employee appraisal is one of the reasons that a meeting can be closed. And in order to close the meeting, we have to know how to do that appropriately. So, I've asked Mike Roth if he would be available to give us a short training at the next, hopefully at the next meeting, to just make sure that we understand our obligations for open meeting law and how to close a meeting. One thing in particular to note is that the city has a policy that in order to close a meeting for any reason that the city attorney has to be present.
Which is also exciting. I'm sorry, Leave is the director at the Coleraine.
Coleraine,
Yeah,
yeah.
I should have known that.
Very close. But
Yes, but oh, so far. Okay, well, we've got some work for us for our next meeting. Does everything seem as clear as it can be for the time being?
Yeah.
So Mike will be there at November 17th, and we'll learn more about open meeting stuff. And that's all we have in our agenda. So we can adjourn, I guess, unless there's anything else. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there support?
Second.
We're adjourned then. Thank you.